The world must listen to what Africa has to say and take Africa's concerns seriously. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi told the group of the G20 nations on Friday, February 21, 2025. South Africa takes the G20 presidency when the world is facing a series of overlapping underdevelopment, inequality, poverty, hunger, unemployment, technological changes, and geopolitical instability. Hello everyone. Thank you all the subscribers. Thank you tons for your support. Please may I ask you to click the bell so that you can be notified every time I publish a video. Please like the video, please share the video. Thank you. The Foreign Minister of China continued. We must listen to what Africa has to say, take Africa's concerns seriously, support Africa's actions, and work for peace and development in Africa, to leave a distinct African mark on the Johannesburg summit, Wang said Thursday, addressing the G20 foreign ministers in the South African city. South Africa currently holds the G20 presidency from last December until November this year. The two-day meeting of foreign ministers was the first such G20 summit hosted by any African city, as South Africa is the only African nation member of the bloc, which also includes the European Union countries. Last year, the African Union was added to the G20 as the 21st member. This year represents an African moment, Wang said, underscoring Beijing's firm support to the African people independently resolving African problems. Beijing opposes external interventions in the domestic affairs of the African countries, Wang added. The decision by the United States to boycott the G20 Foreign Ministers Meeting in Johannesburg has significant diplomatic and geopolitical implications. This move has highlighted the ongoing tensions between Washington and Pretoria, fueled by differences over global governance, international legal institutions, and Middle Eastern geopolitics. Both the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice have taken legal action against Israel, a key ally of the United States. It has emerged as a major critic of U.S. foreign policy as a result of South Africa's opposition to Israel's policies, leading to heightened tensions within global forums such as the G20. Under the current President Donald Trump, the United States has adopted an America First foreign policy, which prioritizes national sovereignty over global cooperation. This approach is rooted in the belief that international institutions, including those governing trade, security, and human rights, often function at the expense of American interests. According to Trump, organizations like the World Trade Organization, the United Nations, and particularly the International Criminal Court target the United States and its allies disproportionately while failing to address broader global issues. One of the primary sources of friction between Washington and Pretoria has been the ICC's investigations into alleged war crimes committed by the United States and its allies, including Israel. The Trump administration previously imposed sanctions on ICC officials when the court attempted to investigate United States military actions in Afghanistan. These sanctions were lifted under President Joe Biden, who expressed support for ICC prosecutions related to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. However, the situation changed when the ICC issued an arrest warrant for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, accusing him of committing war crimes in Gaza. South Africa played a leading role in initiating this case against Israel, further escalating tensions with Washington. The United States Congress reacted strongly, viewing the ICC's actions as an attack on its closest Middle Eastern ally. In retaliation, several American lawmakers pushed for new sanctions against the ICC, arguing that the court was engaging in politically motivated prosecutions. South Africa's legal challenge against Israel and U.S. backlash. Beyond the ICC's actions, South Africa also launched a case against Israel at the ICJ, accusing it of committing genocide in Gaza. The ICJ, the principal judicial organ of the UN, agreed to hear the case, further straining relations between Pretoria and Washington. This move positioned South Africa as one of the most vocal critics of Israeli policies on the global stage, aligning itself with global South nations and pro-Palestinian movements. On January 31, 2024, South Africa and Malaysia jointly initiated a diplomatic campaign to uphold ICC and ICJ rulings, calling on other nations to recognize and enforce these legal decisions. The United States, in contrast, attempted to undermine these rulings, leading to a diplomatic standoff between Washington and Pretoria. The increasing divergence in their foreign policy priorities has created a rift between the United States and South Africa, with broader implications for international diplomacy. In response to the ongoing tensions, United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced via Twitter that he would not attend the G20 Foreign Ministers Meeting in Johannesburg. This decision marks a significant diplomatic boycott by the United States, signaling its discontent with South Africa's stance on Israel and the ICC. This move aligns with broader patterns in United States foreign policy, particularly under Trump, who has frequently sought to challenge the relevance of multilateral institutions when they conflict with American strategic interests. During his first term from 2017 to 2021, Trump pushed to reshape G20 discussions, advocating for reciprocal trade instead of free trade and opposing global climate agreements. It seems that his approach to the G20 and other international organizations could become even more radical and isolationist. Economic and diplomatic consequences for United States and South Africa relations is looking dire every day. The U.S. boycott of the G20 meeting is not merely symbolic. It carries tangible economic and diplomatic consequences. Trump and his allies have been increasingly critical of South Africa's domestic policies, particularly regarding land reform and racial issues. Trump has previously accused South Africa of engaging in land grabbing against white farmers, echoing narratives promoted by right-wing groups. These accusations have also been amplified by figures such as Elon Musk, a South African-born billionaire, who has publicly criticized Pretoria's policies. Additionally, the United States has started to cut financial aid to South Africa, citing concerns over governance and foreign policy disagreements. This move is likely to weaken United States and South Africa relations further, pushing Pretoria closer to China, Russia, and other BRICS nations. The growing alignment of South Africa with alternative global governance structures reflects a larger shift in global power dynamics, where nations in the global South seek to counterbalance Western influence. The G20 is a critical platform for global economic cooperation, bringing together the world's largest economies to discuss pressing international challenges. The United States' decision to boycott the Foreign Ministers Meeting raises serious concerns about the future cohesion of the G20. Historically, the group has played a vital role in stabilizing global financial markets, coordinating economic policy, and addressing geopolitical crises. However, when a major member like the United States withdraws from its proceedings, it undermines the institution's legitimacy and effectiveness. It is reported by South African media that some foreign ministers from countries, including the UK, France, and Germany, declined to participate in the family photo due to their reluctance to be photographed with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Earlier, UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy voiced doubt about Russia's desire for peace in Ukraine after Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov's remarks at the G20 meeting. Following Lavrov's address, Lammy said, "I don't see an appetite to really get to that peace," and noted that Lavrov left the room when it was his turn to speak. The two-day meeting was seen as significant after historic bilateral negotiations between the US and Russia to end the war in Ukraine. Please take a listen.
This is the first time a meeting of G20 foreign ministers has taken place on African soil, with South Africa holding the presidency of the grouping of the world's largest economies.
It is a great opportunity, too, to promote greater collaboration between African nations and the rest of the world. But it is also a great opportunity for all of us as members of the G20 and invited countries to engage in serious dialogue.
But a notable absence, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. That's due to tensions with Washington over a new land reform law in South Africa that President Donald Trump says discriminates against the minority white population. And South Africa's case at the International Court of Justice accusing Israel of genocide.
I don't believe that really America could be threatened by, South Africa. I do know that the president is very close to the Israeli leadership, and it may be a lot to do with the International Court of Justice case rather than the dilemma of Afrikaans-speaking South Africans.
Within the G20 meeting, South Africa intends focusing on solidarity, equality and sustainability targeted at combating climate change. And that's something the new Trump administration also vocally opposes, with Rubio calling it anti-Americanism. The finance ministers and bank governors of G20 states are due to meet next week. Again, the US won't send its most high-ranking official, its Treasury Secretary. In a signal, it's pulling back from the group. With geopolitics being reshaped, this could be the toughest G20 summit ever. It's hoped more than 130 working groups and 23 ministerial-level meetings this year will benefit Africa as it attempts to deal with a worsening debt crisis, the global economy, and developmental inequalities. Both Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi are here reflecting their country's significant influence across Africa. And the European Union says it remains a reliable and practical partner, not only for South Africa, but the rest of Africa too. While South Africa is in the early stages of its presidency, it will also prepare to hand it over to the United States later this year, which could come with its own set of challenges given their differences. Famida Vala, Al Jazeera, Johannesburg, South Africa.